Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Pull Up a Chair, episode 5. I think I have some explaining to do. So, yeah, I kind of disappeared for like solid 2 months or so now. But honestly, the last 2 months have been so crazy. I think it's actually near 3 months now that I've been gone. Um, well, first things first was my exams, which it was IB exam time. If anybody's doing IB, then I'm sure you guys know how crazy that is. It was just a very stressful time. I was so busy and I was so tired because of how much it just a lot of pressure, Like I wasn't actually doing much because I was just studying at home for most of April, I guess, and then the end of April and May were like actual exams, but like each exam is like so stressful. And so I was just really tired. And I would just like to say, whoever made the IB exam schedule this year, they need to go to hell. They need to go right now. Like express shipping, they need to go. Because whose idea was it to put literally like the easiest subjects in week 1 and week 2, like business and like, okay, English is not easy, but it's not it's not the hardest. And then put math, chemistry, economics, and biology in the same week. Who thought that was like a smart thing to do? Because that was one of the most stressful weeks of my life. It was like back to back to back to back, challenging, crazy assessments where I'm like on the brink of crying for every single one. But luckily, we're done. We did it. We got through. I don't know how well I did, honestly, but I'm just happy that it's over. And, like, knock on wood, I am hoping that everything's okay. Exam results actually come out relatively soon. So, very scared, but it's okay. And then after that, it was like just a tizzy of crazy things happening. I have my graduation, and then I had prom, which were both such crazy events in their own. And it was just like kind of a time where I just was enjoying chilling with my friends and, enjoying the freedom that we hadn't felt in so long, especially considering like how crazy DP was, the 18 months of hell that we went through. That like first week of no exam stress or like no stress at all was so overwhelmingly blissful. So I think we were just enjoying and riding that wave so nicely. And then right after that week, I went on my senior trip to Portugal. So we did more relaxing and more really exciting, fun, crazy stuff. It was very, very exciting. And I'm so happy that I had that chance to like relax. And then over the last few weeks, I've kind of just been like recovering, like sleeping a lot and going out with my friends a lot and, just enjoying the freedom of having no responsibilities. But yeah, so it has definitely been like a crazy couple of like 2 almost 3 months now. So that's why I haven't really been recording or uploading anything, because it has just been a bit of a crazy time. Regardless, I'm happy I'm back because I have actually missed yapping so much, just yapping about random shit. And yeah, so the first thing like during my break, I watched two really great things. First of all, Attack on Titan. I had already watched Attack on Titan like when it originally got popular, like a few years ago. Like not originally got popular, I mean like when it started getting super crazy popular, and when I was like watching as like season 4, I think it was coming out. But then like near the end of season 4, I was just like losing it because I don't know, I just think it was just like burning out for how much I was watching it. And I was so confused because there was so much stuff happening, and I was just like, what the hell is going on? And I made the mistake of taking a break, and then for like, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years after that, I never wanted to start again because I forgot everything that happened. And because of how complex the plot was, I was like, okay, if I really want to restart watching this, I'm going to have to completely restart. So now that I had this time, I was like, okay, let's do that then. So I watched like a recap of season 1 and 2, and then I properly restarted on season 3, and I watched full season 4 and everything. And my god, like, first of all, it's such a good show because of how it's just so beautiful and so sad, and it's so like the plot is just so well thought out and crazy that you really don't expect what's going on. But it was also so weird watching the show because of how eerily similar it was to real life. Like, obviously, not with the Titans, but like remove the Titans and it's pretty much our real life where we're living right now. Like, I mean, the whole thing with the Eldians and like the discrimination that they face while they're in what the hell was that place called? Marley. While they're in Marley, like the Eldians in Marley, like the discrimination they face and the fact that they have to wear like the armbands, like that's happened before. Like that's literally like basically World War II stuff, you know, like that. It's so eerily similar because that happened before, you know, like a genocide on that scale. It's happened in our lives, you know, like, or not in our lives, but in our world rather. And that's like the same thing that's happening in Attack on Titan. That, and also like if you guys haven't watched the end, then maybe skip ahead like 2 minutes or so, because this is like a big spoiler. In the end, when like Eren like pretty much destroys the whole world with the rumbling, and then he gets killed, obviously, and then after that the war continues. That made me think like, oh, this is crazy. But then I thought about it a bit more and I was like, that's what happens in our world. Like, we've had 2 world wars where an unfathomable amount of people have died, and yet we still continue on that path, you know? Like, it doesn't stop, it continues to go, and it's happening more and more even in recent years through our lives, you know? And so it's just like, you think about it and you think that like this kind of show is so dystopian and so out of this world and so far removed, but when you actually think about the principles that it touches on in the show and compare it to our real world, you see how actually similar everything is. And it's the same thing with shows like The Hunger Games, you know? Like, every day we're seeing how what's my brain? How much it reflects our real world. You know, every day we can see it more and more that is becoming our reality. Something that's supposed to be a dystopian world is so eerily similar to our world. That's crazy. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. And it's even crazier because the principle behind the creation of films and things and shows like this is that it's not supposed to be our world exactly, you know? It's supposed to be a dystopian thing of what our world could be, but it now reflects what our world is currently or is becoming. So yeah, really crazy. And then besides from that, oh, and I also want to say, like, that was literally that in the last season, the scene when Hanji goes off to kill the colossal titans, and like Levi like salutes her and everything. That made me cry so much. That was so sad. Oh my god. And like that ending bit when like Mikasa kills Eren, and then you see like the original founder, like she feels like her cycle has kind of finished, you know, that Mikasa did what she couldn't, which was kill you know, the love of her life, because that's what, if the founder like Ymir had actually done that, killed King Fitz or whatever his name was, then it would have meant that none of this would have happened, you know. But because she couldn't do it because of how much she loved him, this whole thing unfolded, you know. And even like when you look back and think about the show, and that like that moment when Eren takes Armin and he like shows him everything, you know, because he knew what was going to happen. Like, Eren knew what was going to happen because he's the founding titan and he can see into the future. Like, when he shows Armin what happens and he's just sobbing his eyes out because he loves Mikasa, that broke my heart. Because imagine living this life and you know exactly what has to happen in your life and happen to you, and what you have to do to the people around you, the absolute terror, pain, heartbreak that you have to cause, but you have to do it because there's no other way. I cannot imagine how heartbreaking that must feel, and the fact that he has to do it alone as well makes it even worse, you know. And then yeah, so that was just like a really crazy one to me, and it was very, very sad, and it was done so well, honestly. The other thing that I want to talk about, the other thing that I watched, was Neon Genesis Evangelion, however you say it. I'm gonna call Ava because that's the easiest. Ava was so good. It was so fucking good. Oh my god. I don't think I've watched something that good in so long. Because like watching the original series on its own is an experience because you you really feel so you feel so reflective in a way because although the plot like of actually what's happening in the world of the Eva, like in that world itself, is quite important to the story, the biggest things that stand out to you is not actually what's happening in the world, but what's happening to the characters and their personal development and their pitfalls, because their character development is actually what carries the show. You know, that's the kind of principle that they're bringing through um, in the show. And especially with like Shinji, Asuka, and Rei, like obviously they're the main characters. That show is fucking crazy. It is so good, and it really makes you think about like, first of all, the biggest question is like, who are you? Like, why are you here? You know, things like, what are you worth? What is my value? And how do I feel like I'm worth something in this world, you know? And it's such a crazy thought because there's never going to be an answer to those kinds of things. You're setting yourself up for failure by asking, you know, what am I worth? Because there's no set answer to that, and there never will be, because your worth isn't defined by one thing or one sentence or the answer to a question. Your worth is so nuanced and complex that it's so like it's a question you can't ask. And the fact that they continuously ask it every single episode, you know, that question, especially to Asuka and Shinji, is like, what am I worth? What am I here for? And eventually that's what leads Shinji into the human instrumentality project, is not understanding his worth, you know, that self-loathing that comes from not feeling like he's worth anything. But yeah, in general, it's also so crazy to me how in the show, like, of course, the ending is very different. And then there's the movie, The End of Evangelion, which is a new ending. And both the endings are simultaneous to complement each other, but they're also different in their own way. And you can imagine the end of Evangelion and the end in the original series as two different, completely separate realities of the ending, or you can think about it as one ending that you put together, which is so crazy because like the way that they complement each other is so beautiful, and it's so trippy because you keep thinking to yourself like, what's going on, like how did we get here, you know, like what is the point of this? And when you think about like Gendo, like Shinji's father, and like the reasons why he did this, like why he started the instrumentality project, which was to bring like Shinji's mom back, Yui, like you see how far that selfishness took him. And you also see, you know, the porcupine theory, that like the closer that they get to each other, the more that they hurt each other and themselves. You see like that relationship with Shinji and Gendo, and you see Shinji perpetuating that relationship, or that feeling of not being able to be vulnerable because of how scared he is, into every relationship that he has throughout the rest of the show. And when you see how impactful that like small, or not small, but that pitfall of not being able to be vulnerable with other people or struggling with human connection, and you see how it's affected both Gendo and Shinji and what it's caused in their world, is so crazy. Because realistically, if Gendo was not if he was able to be vulnerable and he was able to, you know, connect with other people and make that effort, the instrumentality project would never have happened, because he wouldn't have felt like, first of all, Seely would never have had the brains to do that, because like Gendo was like the pushing factor for how they got to the instrumentality like the human instrumentality project. But if Gendo was able to make that human connection, like that would never have happened, you know? And it makes you think about how important human connection is in this world, because without human connection, what is the value of anything that we're living, you know? To the point in the show where he's willing to basically sacrifice the lives of everybody to make sure that nobody feels pain, so that he doesn't have to feel pain. But with human connection, that never would have happened realistically, you know? And it also makes you think about like what it is to be human, because one of the principles of why Gendo wanted to do that was so that no one would feel pain, no one would feel lonely. Everyone would always be happy and connected to each other, which is exactly what he wants. But I think one of the driving points of the show is that part of being human is being lonely, because being lonely makes making connections all the more beautiful and all the more important. And without that, are we really human? If we're not able to feel lonely and make connections to substitute that loneliness, or rather, not substitute, but to not necessarily take away the loneliness, because loneliness is kind of an inherent thing that all humans will feel, but to help us through the loneliness rather, then, what is the point of being a human? What is the point of being here if we're not making connections with each other? If we're not loving one another, if we're not caring for each other, respecting each other, like what's the point, And it's such a crazy thing to think about. And when you watch the show, it just feels so much more profound because of how impactful human connection is in the show. But yeah. And also I watched the rebuilds, and I know a lot of people didn't like the rebuilds, but I really, really enjoyed them. Especially, of course, the last one, 3.0 plus 1.0. And I liked it not for, like, obviously I was so confused because I was like, where are these things coming from? Like, what is going on? Because there's like 6 new principles that are introduced that's different from the show, and they don't really talk about it. It's just there, which I get is also like part of Evangelion in the first place. Like, that's something that they do normally, is they just say something and you don't know what it is. But I was very confused. But I really do, first of all, I really do like the idea that was basically like shown in the rebuild, which was that the rebuild isn't a remake of the anime, it's a continuation. And that was made so much more like evident when Kaoru, like, he wakes up and then there's like a bunch of coffins of versions of him, basically saying that like this is just another life that they're living through. They're basically in this infinite loop of lives, and Kaoru in every life is there to make Shinji happy. His goal is to make Shinji happy, and then when you get into the part of like 3.0 plus 1.0, when Shinji meets Misato's child, oh, that broke me. That made me cry so much, because when Shinji truly understands why Misato has pushed Shinji away, and it's because she wants to shoulder the blame for what happened in the near third impact, that made me cry so much. Because, oh, I don't know, it's just like the fact that, like, that simple understanding, or the what's wrong with my mouth? Or because Shinji's able to empathize with why Misato made those actions and those choices, that made me cry. That made me cry so much. I was so sad. But yeah, and also the ending was so beautiful when Shinji also like tells Kaoru that like his happiness is not dependent on Shinji's happiness. And that ending in the train scene when Mari and Shinji are together, and you can see in the background like Kaoru and Rei together. So sweet. And then also like Rei being able to have her own life and figuring out like what she likes, making human connection, learning about what that even means. That made me so sad but so happy at the same time, because I feel like it really added a piece of depth to Rei that was not in the original show. And I loved it because I do think that Rei, like in the end of the original show, you can really see her development and how she rejects Gendo in like his want for them to merge so that he can become like whatever, Adam or whatever. But when you like see not only her rejecting him, but being able to live her own life, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, and I'm so happy that that was added in. And I also really like the principle that they went through, like the creators of Evangelion went through when they made the movies, the rebuild, like the principle that it's not a remake just to like brush up the animation and add some extra plot points, but it was a rebuild to take the ideas that they had in Evangelion and make them more profound and add depth to them in a new way. I felt like it was a really, really amazing thing to do, and I'm so happy that they did actually include that, because yeah, I feel like just ending at the end of Evangelion would have been a bit sad. I would have been really sad, because although it was like, it was an ending, it definitely didn't feel like a close for the characters, you know? Even like, I'm all for a tragic ending if that's really what they wanted to do, but End of Evangelion didn't feel like an ending. It felt like, so now we're here. Now what, you know? Like, it didn't really feel like things concluded. It just felt like, I don't know, it felt like so weird, and I'm not a big fan of things that like don't end. Like, I don't like it when they just like let it be, like just let it hang there. I really don't like that, so I'm really happy that they actually went through and properly like ended the show, you know? But yeah. Also, I never understood like how massive the impact of Evangelion was in anime culture. I was going through, like, I was watching some videos on like the history, like the proper like summaries of Evangelion, and like people talking about their theories and whatever, and also people talking about like the impact in Japan or just in the anime sector in general. And I really never, I could never have realized without seeing it firsthand, like looking in those videos and watching them and seeing how crazy the impact was, because it's insane. It's mad how extensive the impact Evangelion had in the industry. But yeah, um, there was something else that I also wanted to talk about. I kind of forgot already. Yeah, I kind of forgot. Oh well, it is what it is. I'll probably remember it later. But yeah, um, oh wait, and also the other thing was, I spoke about it in previous episodes, like 2 episodes ago. I was talking about like Percy Jackson, how like I can only read fantasy books because like regular books make my brain like go numb, and like I can't do it. Um, Recently I actually started reading the Let Them Theory, and I never realized like I was gonna be able to read that book, but something about the book and like how Mel actually talks about the book like from personal experiences, and like uses her personal experiences to discuss the theories that she has in the book, like it's so captivating and it's so nice. Like, I never realized that I was going to be able to read a nonfiction book like that. But yeah, and the Let Them Theory is also really beautiful because um like, I think there is something very like uniquely powerful about, instead of trying to control other people, controlling yourself. And I struggle with that so much because I have realized in recent years that I am a control freak. Like, I really, really am a control freak. I'm very controlling as a person. And it's not necessarily in like, oh, like trying to, like, I want you to do this. I like things like, I don't know, like not the typical controlling. It's more in like, I feel like sometimes, like, I feel like my way is the right way. So because my way is the right way, like, another way is worse than my way, which, to be fair, it usually is. My way is usually the best way. But like, when I tell somebody like, oh, do it, like, or when somebody's doing something and I'm like, maybe try this way, and then like don't do it that way, like, it kind of does frustrate me, because it's like, if you just listen to me, like, you would have gotten this thing done so much quicker, or so much better. Or like in group project and things where I'm like, we're sharing work or something, and then I know like a piece of work, like, I know the person isn't going to do the piece of work that they're supposed to do the way that I would do it, or the way that I would want them to do it. So then I just end up doing it myself because it frustrates me. Um, or like, even in my family and things, like with like my sibling, my sister, like, I always like give her advice on things to do, and like, this, you should try doing this and you should try doing that, and then she doesn't listen to what I tell her to do. And then I get really frustrated because I'm like, your life would be so much easier if you just listened to me and just did what I said, because, you know, like, this is the good thing to do, like, just do it, just listen. And she would never do it, and it would always piss me off, because I'm like, if you just listen to me, then your life would be 6 times easier. But I'm like, from the Let Them Theory especially, like, I've come to realize as well that just because my way may be like a good way, or in my opinion the best way, it doesn't mean that it's the most helpful way for other people. And other people also have their own processes, and if people want to take extra time or extra effort because they don't want to do the thing in the best way or the way that like I've recommended or whatever, you just have to kind of let them do that. Like, it's their life. Like, you have to just let them and accept it and move on, because otherwise you're going to drive yourself crazy, and I do drive myself crazy. So yeah, I'm very happy that I read the book, because yeah, I honestly drive myself crazy sometimes, like trying to control like all these little small things. But something that I definitely, like, I got a wake up call from Let Them was like understanding that the only thing you can control, and like the let me part of the Let Them theory, you know, instead of controlling what they're going to do, let me control what I'm going to do. Like, let me fix this, or let me do this for myself, because even though other people aren't going to listen or do this, like, I can control this part of my life, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to put more energy into that rather into things that I cannot control, because yeah, why try and control things you can't? And yeah, I don't know, it was just a really crazy thing to read, because I think, like, I'm a very self-aware person. Like, I knew that I was doing that. Like, I always knew that I was very like, I think I always like subconsciously knew that I was very controlling, and I also subconsciously knew that like I shouldn't try and do that, and I should just focus on controlling the things I can control for myself. But like, I think like the Let Them book, like it gave me a wake up call, you know, because I think also with like people who are self-aware just in general, like quite like hyper self-aware, like I'm very self-aware of my actions, the things I do, like not always my emotions, but at least my actions, the causes of things I'm feeling. Like, I'm very like self-aware of those things. But sometimes, even though I'm self-aware of what's happening and I know what I'm supposed to do to fix them, like I don't fix them. I don't do those things. And it's like, I know exactly what I'm supposed to do, but I don't do it. So yeah. I guess sometimes also hearing it from an outside perspective does make you want to do something different, you know? Um, and I also, oh yeah, I also saw this one theory, and I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically this theory that like, if you if you want someone, like you want like a guy or something, that you need to like pull away from them to make them obsessed with you, um, and like continue that power of having that person obsessed with you all the time. And like, I was just thinking, because I don't disagree with that theory. Like, I don't think you should be obsessed with somebody, and I do personally think that it is always better to have a man obsessed with you than you be obsessed with a man, because that would drive you, like, I know from firsthand experience. But I feel like it's just like a weirdly, sometimes I think it's like a weirdly unhealthy way to think. Like, it might be a hot take, but I don't know, it just feels a bit weird to always think of relationships as one person has to be obsessed with the other person, and only that way around. Like, I don't know, it feels so like, not unbalanced, but more like unhealthy, because I feel like if you spend your life with a person, like only with a person who's obsessed with you, and then everything you do is to keep them obsessed with you, it's like, how far are you going to take that and run with it, you know? Like, how far are you going to live your life to make sure that that person is obsessed with you? Like, I don't know, it's just a weird theory, but yeah, that's what I was thinking. Anyways, this has been episode 5. I'm sorry guys for disappearing for so long. I'm gonna try and come back to like kind of weekly-ish, but it definitely will slow down in the coming weeks again, because I am going to travel in the summer, and it is going to be a crazy couple of months coming up, because I'm moving and everything, like for university and whatever. So I'm sorry if I'm going to be inconsistent, but I'm going to try and do a few other things, like post more on TikTok and on maybe Instagram, YouTube Shorts maybe, and maybe do some vlogs and types of stuff like that. So hopefully you guys will get to see more of that. But yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.